Indria watched as emerging from the forest came this party of largely young people, men, women, a mix. As she watched them approaching her camp, there was a mixed feeling of relief that maybe these people were going to help, which was quickly undercut by fear. Fear that these people had come to get a cut on their misfortune. As they approached, they were being led by a rather enthusiastic young man. They were being brought up by one of her little workers, someone she didn't really like. She kind of wished that he had gotten caught up in the collapse, but beggars can't be choosers. And now as this sort of young, energetic, excited, very wiry and thin young man approaches, she immediately asked, "Who are you? What do you want? Hey, do you want to cut in on this?" The young man spoke up very enthusiastically. They were here to help. They'd heard of the disaster. They'd been seeking out to Alban the Desolate to show them what they could do to help in this situation. And they knew that just being here and helping in this massive rock slide that had occurred as they were digging through the pass through Raven's Rest would be the way that they could help. Indria was immediately skeptical. She was always skeptical of new people coming to her towns and her places. She had this skepticism that had arisen from her day as her previous career as a guard. But now this was her chance to step out of the shadow and make a real woman of herself by putting through this past and charging a toll. And now these guys, were they here to take more? But this young guy was insistent. He said he wanted to help, so she said, "Oh, stuff it. Come inside, come into the hut. It's starting to rain. We might as well come in and have a talk anyway." So the group, they dumped their luggage under a bit of a awning out the side of this very roughshod wooden shack. They make their way inside. She has the door open, letting them in one at a time. This enthusiastic gentleman makes sure everyone's all organized as they go inside. But then Indria looks and she sees one of this party of helpers that have come to help. It's a young lady wearing mostly black. And at first she takes a double look because as an Ironlander, she doesn't expect to see this, but it's very clearly an elf. Like her hood is over her head, but she can see from the facial features that she is indeed an elf. And as the rain starts to come down, she stares up at the pass. She looks up, looks down, and perhaps she's looking at that piece of iron sticking out the top of the pass. Doesn't sit right with her either. But she tugs on the enthusiastic young man. "Is that elf with you?" "Oh, yeah, Gahena, get out! Come out of the rain, are you crazy?" As the young man calls out to Gahena, she stands in the rain, doesn't move. Indrianda wonders if maybe she's just a little bit, slow or something. But the elf soon snaps out of it, looks at her. And funnily enough, she kind of wished she hadn't. Even though the rain is bucketing down, even though she's obviously started back to life from whatever thoughts she was having, her eyes still look glazed, or at least covered in a layer of hardship which she doesn't understand. This party could be trouble. G'day, my name is Evan. I am playing Ironsworn. This is actually the free copy that I've printed to play. Ironsworn by Shaun Tomkins. Great game, by all means have a look. And we're following the story of Gahena. She is an elf who's arrived in Eldenwatch to try and make a new life for herself. She might have the ability to start doing that if she completes this little oath that she's sworn. Like a quest. She's heading north. There's been an accident, a landslide at a building pass. They're trying to build a cut through the hills to get up to the northern hinterlands. But it collapsed, and so she's there trying to help. And that way maybe herself, her mother-in-law, Naomi, who's come with her, can win some affection from these locals and maybe make a new place for themselves there. The last time we made a journey up to this place, this construction site, I guess you'd say, digging site. It was smaller than we'd expected. It's a smaller party. And we discovered the people there. So for example, Indria, who I rolled for just a moment ago, she's the manager of the site. She's the one that's coordinating this, ex-guard. And they're a bit greedy. They're a bit shy about these people coming in because they're worried that they might want to cut on this, which is supposed to be their sort of little private enterprise. But, you know, they are in a dire strait, so we'll see if they'll accept the help or not. But Gahena, this is where we left off last time. As she looked around, at this place, this Raven's Rest, this work site, she saw amongst the rubble a piece of iron, a large piece of iron, big iron obelisk which dot the landscape of the Ironlands. Mysterious things to both Ironlanders and elves. So we'll see if that's got anything else to do with what's going on or not. But let's get into it. Rain, by the way. I'm going to imagine now it's raining. In part, that's because it's actually raining outside. So if you hear that, take it as a part of the ambience. So Gahena makes her way into this roughshod cabin, literally just logs cut and stacked to make a little room. I imagine most people are staying in tents and stuff, but now that there's been the accident, less people have all more or less moved into this one place. Little fireplace burning in the corner. There's enough rubble and rock around that they've been able to make a chimney on the side of this building. But what Gahena and her party need to do is figure out what has happened, what's gone wrong, and what can they do. So we're going to do a gather information roll. We're going to just run off of Gehena's stats. She's going to roll with her stats, but we'll add an extra 1. She hasn't got a bond with Tristan, the helpful leader of the party. But we imagine the whole party's there clearly earnestly trying to help. So we're going to add a +1 to our gather information roll. It's a weak hit. Indriana is a little bit hesitant to share information. As the whole party, they're all saying, we're here to help, we want to know what can we do. Like literally, what can we do? We're here early, we can start this afternoon if you want. But she's really hesitant to share information, but slowly they pull out from her something more about the situation that's gone down. We'll roll on action and theme. It says attack Burden. Who attacked Burden? Was it the party that attacked a Burden, or was it some external force that attacked a Burden? External force, yes, 50-50. No. Okay, so I'm thinking what we say is Indriana, she begins to reveal the fact that they had been digging here for quite some time. Not an enormous party, but certainly a large party compared to what they can see now. It's her, a handful of others. There was more. There's at least double this numbers. We're going to say there's about, 5 people were missing at the moment, assumed dead. And they had been digging for quite a while, and as they dug into the mountain, they noticed something strange, okay? They noticed that as they went in there was these little open caves, and at first they thought they were natural features, but they began to realize that these things were actually carved, maybe not built, but certainly carved out by someone else. They thought that was very strange. They found some sort of passageway. Maybe this was a good sign. If they could get into the passageway, went to the other side, less digging for them. Hooray, hooray. But as they went, they then eventually found at the center of this, the big iron obelisk, the big iron monolith, at the center of this little half dug out cove area. And obviously that made everyone very nervous, and this is very odd. But when they did that, they sort of dug around it, they tried to avoid it, they tried to be careful, but they realized that this was probably the dead end of where this whole little underground structure went, and it wasn't going any further. So they're going to have to keep digging. And they thought maybe we could try and extend up and dig out using this underground little place under here to extend out. They never questioned what it was. We have no idea what it was. They didn't bother to look around. It could be a ritual site, it could be a catacomb, it could be anything like that, but they didn't bother to look. But what they did do is they began to sort of try and dig further in and dig up in order to sort of extend and build out this whole thing. But of course, as they did, they attacked the structure that was taking the burden of the hill. And sure enough, the whole thing just collapsed down. And I guess we can pretty safely say that this is our main conundrum. As they were, maybe the two groups were digging around the place, one digging up, one digging further in. When the whole thing collapsed, it's caved in, and now that group of people are buried deep under there, probably dead. And as far as Indriana's concerned, there's no point wasting time trying to figure out if these people are alive or not. We need to start digging further in. We might find their bodies as we go, but if we keep digging further and actually cut through the past, we'll not only get the project done quicker, but the families, they can grieve their losses just that much quicker. So Gahena's goal in this whole situation is to preserve life, and now we're discovering that it's a couple of days in, and the group of people that have been cut off and lost are deeper in the tunnel. So maybe preserving their life is not really an option, which doesn't sound like it. What does Tristan want to do? So as they're talking, Tristan's sort of listening, and he's putting his little bits and pieces in, he's clarifying little details. He's not really helping towards finding a solution. But once this is done, and once they hear that Indriana's all like, well, let's just come in, just keep digging in further. We might be able to get their bodies, and we'll keep going in the process. And you wanted to help these people, you could help them by doing that, and help me by just cutting down some costs by doing this thing nicely for their families, so we can dig through the thing. Anyway, Tristan's listening, he's asking occasionally some clarifying detail, but nothing really ever important. But as the conversation comes to an end, the whole group, but Gahena looks to Tristan and say, well, Tristan, what do you want to do? What does Tristan want to do? Well, Tristan, when they look at him and say, well, what do you want to do? He then looks at Indriana. I can't believe you. Your brethren are lost in this mountain. They could be dead, they could be alive in the dark, and you have the audacity to think of profit? No, we're not going to keep digging in your mountain for you. We're going to dive straight in to try and find those catacombs or tunnels or whatever they were, and when we get those people out, that's where the priority is. No more, continuing on the construction. This should be your number one priority. Now, we won't bother to roll for a compel because Tristan is not our main character. I think we're going to rely on the fact that was Tristan's thought. It says that with our action and theme, it said he wanted to oppose ally. So now he's all like, wow, how dare you? Let's just stick to character for Indriana. She's all like, well, what are you doing? You come here acting as if you own the place. Like, what? You can't come in here and tell me what I can and cannot do. Those people knew the risks. They knew the risks. So what do you want us to do? Fight. So it's a deadlock. Ultimately, the party is going to need the help of these original construction people in order to do anything. But Indriana, she's stuck with only her handful of builders left anyway. So they're fighting. We're not getting anywhere as far as what we want to do. So let's clarify. Indriana wants to come down. If she digs down, they'll get down to that level and find the bodies, and then also have the past. Whereas Tristan wants to dig straight in through to see what she can do. And Gahena is there listening. Gahena doesn't know what to do. She's not an engineer. She's not a miner. She's not a rescue worker. Do they exist in the Ironlands? Professional rescue workers? Probably not. So I think what she's going to do is she's going to make a bit of a devoted prayer to the Iron God, a very righteous God, Abba. Let's see if that helps at all. We'll roll with wit. And again, she gets nothing. She doesn't hear anything. She sits there and hears this argument, and she can hear the both sides of this argument. The reality is those people in there have been there for days, completely cut off. She's right, they're probably dead. But at the same time, digging all the way down? By the time they find them, that's just going to be horrible. And that's not preserving life. And now she's not hearing anything from Abba again? Oh, this sucks. So Gahena has to make a call. Gehena's mind goes back to some of the conversations she had with her late husband before the attacks, before he died. And they had conversations about Abba. They talked about how Abba was a very powerful spirit god thing, which is how she connected. She's an elf. She sort of understands things more as forces and spirits as opposed to a god. whereas that's what her husband believed, the Ironlanders' way of doing things. But as they discussed that this Abba was righteous and right, and it did the right thing at all times, even if things were hard, even if obstacles came in their way. Abba would find a way, like a river metaphor type thing. It would eventually find its way to the sea. Even when you couldn't see the river, even when the river wasn't on the surface, that water would flow underground. And you would trust they would always go to the sea. So even though Gahena cannot see Abba, cannot hear Abba and what Abba wants to do, she's going to be faithful. And she's going to assume that as Abba is a god of righteousness, of goodness, that she's going to do the thing that she thinks is right. At least by the people back in Elden Watch. Gahena stands up, and just the act of someone standing up in this little hut that are all sort of gathered around the fire is enough to sort of get people's attention, and they also briefly, out of shock, go quiet. She looks at Indriana and says to her, "We have come to this place for the sake of the families at Elden Watch. Whether they are dead or alive, we are here to collect those bodies. We shall dig into the mountain directly, find them in whatever state, and we shall take them home." So she's making a command. She's commanding, she hasn't directly said that you will help us, but that's obviously the implication. She's going to try and get her Indriana to help in this process. So she's making a command with heart, I suppose. Compel with heart, sorry. So it's a miss. Indriana stands up, this time her hand gripping an axe that's sitting on her hip. They hadn't noticed it until now, but now she makes sure that everyone sees that. As she does that, people begin to notice that she's standing in the doorway. There's another gentleman with a spear. He leans on it and looks forward. And Indriana speaks. "This is our site, and no one tells us what to do on it. Certainly not a bunch of young, enthusiastic adventurers, and certainly not an elf. Get out of my campsite now." Bugger. So Gahena and Tristan, without saying much more of a word, they stand up. The rest of the party look a bit confused. They don't know what's going on. Well, they know what's going on, but they're just shocked at it ending this way. Tristan is not used to shows of violence. Like, he's spent most of his life in town, and yes, there's some thuggish behavior that happens, but not someone with an axe, and not someone so thoroughly trapping them. He gets up and doesn't say anything. They all make their way back out to where all their baggage is. They gather it up, and they, in the rain, make their way a little out of sight from the camp. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. So the whole party can't believe this. They're all walking away. Was all this for naught? They go back. What do we do? Gahena cannot go back. She has sworn on iron that she will help these people. And not only has she made this oath, but fulfilling this oath is going to actually help her mother-in-law back home and herself ultimately as well. So, okay, what do we do? Once outside of the camp, people begin to talk, they begin to murmur. They're all sort of looking at Gahena. They're all looking at her because ultimately she said that last thing, and now it's all gone wrong, so she's kind of the scapegoat in this situation. She can hear that whispering. Tristan's not so much, he's just staring down, he's confused as to what to do. Stuff it. So Gahena, she is going to break off from the party a little bit. She goes off into the bush. She goes to the right into the forest. She doesn't keep following the path, and everyone sort of notices her just sort of disappear suddenly off into the wilderness. I'm going to say Tristan follows. Tristan automatically follows because he's just like, where's she going? What's going on? Do the others follow? I'm going to say it's unlikely. No, they don't. So the others are sort of left going, what's going on? But Tristan barrels after, and he's all like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And Gehenna's like, I swore on iron we will save those people. But we've been kicked out of the camp. You saw them, they were armed. If we go back there now, they're just as likely to attack us as certainly more likely to attack us than help us. I know, but we don't necessarily need their help. What do you mean? I mean, they said they found some sort of tunnel network and that they believed it came to a dead end. What if it didn't come to a dead end? What if there was some other way through to where they got there? Oh, that's a stab in the dark. They would have noticed that. They would have followed other caverns if they wanted to get through to the other side of the mountain. They did not look around. She had no idea what that place was. They didn't look at anything. There may have been a passage that had been walled up, or a secret passage, or even just something they just hadn't noticed. We could potentially find something. I have an idea. This is something unusual. This is something that is not normally practiced, but it might work. I still have these. And Gahena held out her runes, the runes from last time, the runes that they had used with the shepherd boy. Remember the shepherd boy? He has someone who was a part of that working party. They were hoping to get in on this investment to the north, but it hadn't gone well. The shepherds got lost and got stuck. And she's got the runes, and I don't know, she hasn't cleaned them. I'm just going to say that Gahena didn't do that. That's not what you do with runes. You don't just get the soap out and give them a scrub. They've still got the mucus and the snot on them from before. Now they're dry and they're crusty, and you don't normally use snot, and you don't normally use them twice, but maybe we can use the runes in order to figure out another way of getting in there. Maybe people that are stuck in there have found another way through. Tristan looks at these runes, just a little standoffish. This is elf stuff. He's not kind of used to that. So he's a little, we could do that. Yes, we could, but surely it's all dry. Does that do anything? And Gahena goes, well, what we can do is we can use some of my blood. Your blood, is that how that works? Well, yeah, what I can do is if I use some of my blood and a significant amount, it has to really hurt. That's the idea. Then maybe we can kind of reactivate what's left on there from that shepherd boy. And that could help us find where these people are and if there's another way in. It's a long shot, but it's possible. So we're going to bend the rules a little bit here. It says that you need the blood of a willing participant in order to try and figure out information using this divination path card thing. We don't have a willing participant on us. That whole camp just kicked us out. But that shepherd was willing to try and find out more about what happened to their friend. But they're not around, and I'm kind of saying that the snot's still on there, and we're going to make it fly. Basically, if I'm going to take off a point of health from Gahena, and use that as a bit of a cost to try and reactivate the runes and figure out if we can find something regarding a way in to this past mountain hill thing. But before I do that, Tristan hears this and he kind of understands what she means, but not really. Is he willing to make the sacrifice for her? He is a really nice guy, and so far he feels a bit useless. He feels like he's failed the group. Is this his way of getting back in? We're going to say 50-50. He is that kind of person who wants to help, but is also creeped out by this whole elf magic thing. He looks at the runes, and you see for a moment that he's like, I could help, but I have no idea. And he's kind of scared. He looks at Gahena. Gahena looks at him, and she sees in his eyes that he's a good man. He's a good person. But he's scared. And this elf stuff is too far for his background and his heritage and the culture that surrounds him. This elf stuff is not okay for him, which is a bit of a disappointment to Gahena, but this is what she lives with. So Gahena takes out a knife that she has on her in her equipment, and it's not so much she needs a lot of blood, but rather she just this really needs to hurt. So she doesn't do like a little nick or something. She actually deliberately takes her arm and she finds, from what she knows of the body, a bit of flesh where it's like, okay, this is not going to do any permanent damage, but this is going to hurt. And with that, she shoves the knife into her arm and she winces in pain and it hurts like blue blazes. It's bad and it hurts, and she almost forgets why she's doing this for a moment as she deals with the pain, but she quickly gets her runes and she claps them onto the blood of her wound. And she holds it there and she takes it away and takes out the knife, and Tristan's immediately there. Tristan immediately comes in and he wraps it up. He doesn't like treat it or anything like that. That injury is still standing. And maybe even tries, but she's like, no, it's got to hurt. It has to hurt. So he sort of bandages it and puts the pressure on, and she's holding it now. Her hand bloodied from her own injury, with the runes in that hand. So with that blood, she once again, breathing, holds out her hand. Her imagination goes to the place of her birth, the tree, the night, the fairy lights, the night sky, the place of her birth, and she holds that place in her mind as she lets the runes drop. It's good, it's a strong hit. We're going to gather information with a +1. She knows it's successful, she drops, so she gets this flash. It's always a good feeling. And she then gathers information in order to try and figure out where this person is. It's a strong hit, thank goodness. So, what happens? In the flash, her mind races out across the landscape. And in it, she's able to see, as her mind goes out, she goes over a nearby hill to the west of the Raven's Rest. And it goes down a little gully, and it's out of the way. It's got a few really difficult thickets all around it, so you wouldn't notice it normally. But there's a little pool. And in that pool, there is a wall. And it is clearly a brick wall, something that's been built up. This might have been some other entrance at some point, who knows, but it's flooded. It's got a whole bunch of water that's drained off into this pond, and it's sort of half flooded there. But she now can see this flooded wall off at the distance. She kind of knows in her mind's eye where it is. She even then goes into the dark, and the dark flicks and flashes around. And then it comes in on a face, the face of a young person, a face I'm assuming of the farmer, and their eyes are open. But whether they're open with death or open with life, she can't quite tell as this sort of vision disappears from her. All this from reading runes. I'm not quite sure that's quite what's meant to have happened. Let's retcon it. She saw it as she gazed at them in her hands or something, I don't know. We now know that flooded is a little wall that might be able to get us into where we're looking to go. Okay. She relates this to Tristan, and Tristan hears what she's got to say, and she's all like, look, there's this wall. We could possibly get in that way. But I'll need help. I can't do this by myself. I can't. But you can help me. You can actually help me to save these people, please. She's trying to compel with heart. It's a weak hit. He looks and he's like, oh, I don't know. But in the end, he knows what he's come for. He knows they want to help. Okay, I'll come with you, but I don't think the others will. They're not going to be coming with us. It's just going to be us two. Do you think that's enough? It's going to have to be enough. So Gahena and Tristan, they begin to make their way further into the forest. They're off trails now. There's a few animal runs that they're able to sort of get onto, but there's no clear path at all. Plus, this will take them back kind of closer to the encampment. They're not quite close to it, so they might spot them. We are in the Ironlands. Yes, we're in the hinterlands, but we're right on the border with the hinterlands, so there could be any sort of danger in the Ironland. So let's do a face danger roll. They're going to be moving along, so we're going to be saying that's edge. So we're going to face danger. Oh, strong hit. Oh, gee. We've gone from really bad rolls to some really good ones. So they actually make their way up the hill pretty much without incident. It's during the day still, so they're able to see their way pretty well, even though it's raining. Things are a bit slippery. There's some water running off of some rocks, but more or less everything that could be dangerous is trying to keep indoors, basically. And they manage to make their way up on the hill. It takes like pretty much all day, and the rain's coming down, but maybe the rain's patchy but starting to clear as the afternoon hits, and twilight is starting to spread across the entire landscape. But sure enough, they find themselves, as the vision sort of showed her, at this little pool with a wall, and they found it. Water's rushing into this little pool. It's actually even higher than it was before. It's really gathering up water. What do they do now? We're a bit hurt and our supplies are low, but better now than never. They decide to make their way down into this pool. Tristan's all shocked. My goodness, you were right. This is the wall. This is the wall you saw, wasn't it? Gahena, she doesn't say anything. She just lets him chatter away. But she looks at it and, well, what kind of wall is it? Does it look... What is it? What kind of wall is it? The wall's pretty nondescript. It's just covered in moss. So I guess they need to get in to figure out what's going on. So they look at it. They start knocking on it. They're looking for any little gaps that they can find. In the end, do they find an easy way in? I'm going to say basically they're going to find either an easy way in or they're going to have to like force their way in. So 50-50, do they find... No, not 50-50, gather information. Do they find their way in? Okay, so yes, they do. As they look around this wall, they do eventually find, sort of carved into this brickwork, there's a little raised pattern in the shape of a diamond. And in it, there's like a nicely carved circle that goes into the side of the rock. It looks like a keyhole, which makes no sense because obviously this is all rock and stuff. But like, they don't have the key, obviously. They don't have anything else. So what do? They know that they can get this thing open if they sort of use this in some way. Speak, friend, and enter. It's probably not going to be that. I don't know. What do we do? Well, I guess we just search the area. Maybe search in the pool, search on the banks of the pool, run their feet along to see if they can find something that might help to fit into that hole, whether it's intended or maybe just something they could shove in there and pry open with. I don't know. So they're going to try and gather information, looking around. So it's another weak hit. As they dig around, they eventually do kick their feet on something unusual. It takes some time. Again, things are getting a bit darker and darker. But they manage to pull out of the pool something. At first they feel it's like a rope or something, but then they feel it's more rigid than that, and they give it a good heave, and out comes this big, long iron bar. It looks like it's about the right width for that hole, but this bar is clearly bent in a way that it shouldn't be, and it is rusted. This big iron bar is rusted through, and that's probably not what's supposed to happen with this thing. So they found what might have originally gone in there and done something, but they don't even know if it's a key. But they figure what they can try and do is literally use it to try and break the wall open. Okay, it seems pretty sturdy, even though it's quite rusted. It might snap, but it doesn't seem like it will bend. So Gahena and Tristan, they as best they can shove this thing into the wall, and they're going to try and, with all their strength, push it open. So we're going to say this is, I guess, face danger again, but with strength. And normally that's not, oh no, she's got 2 strength. She's stronger than she looks. But we also got Tristan, so we might actually add another 1 on that in order to show that that's Tristan helping to push this thing open. So that's +3 to this face danger, but it's going to be breaking the wall open. It's pretty good. It's a strong hit. So it's a strong hit, which means they're able to, as they're leaning on this thing, they can feel it begin to buckle and crack. Bits of oxidized iron starts to flake off. But eventually they hear and the whole thing, they can see that the wall is beginning to bow out. At that point, they kind of leave the wall because it's not very strong. I'm not leave the bar, sorry, because it might snap. They reach over with their hands and they begin to try and pull, and making a loud noise, they manage to actually begin to pull these rocks out. Now we got a strong hit. I was tempted if they got a weak hit or something like that to actually have it open, but maybe the water rushes down. But I'm going to say because it was strong, they managed to actually get the bricks to loosen further up. And so they're actually out of the water as they pull this section of the wall out. And now they have like a little space, not a huge section of the wall has come through, but like the other bricks are holding above. There's just a nice little round little circle of brickwork taken out that they can then crawl through and get into. But it's dark in there. So what do? Do we go into the dark? That's a great question. And what is even in the dark? Is it still raining? I'm going to say unlikely because I said it was patchy. No, it's not raining. Okay, so it's not raining. So Gahena and Tristan decide what they'll do is they're going to make a little fire, get a little bit of burning timber that they can get going. Everything's a bit wet, so it might be a bit tricky. But then they will drop that burning timber into the dark or shine it in to see if they can see anything. I'll roll a wit secure advantage. They secure advantage, well and truly. It's a very strong hit. All these strong hits all of a sudden. We'll add the momentum. So momentum is now quite high. In fact, as high as you can get, actually. We're at the full 10. Woohoo, full 10 momentum. And they approach, they make this fire. Even though it's quite wet and damp, they manage to get it going. And this bit of wood is now burning and smouldering. And they hold it through the hole in the wall and to see what they can see and gather some information. Okay, so the information is good. They can see what they can see now, and as they look through the hole, they actually see that there is no immediate floor just below the hole. There's a bit of water trickling through some holes in the rocks, maybe further down, but there's no. You can hear the water trickle down and fall down below, hitting stone. Who knows how far below? So they take that bit of burning wood and they drop it to see what happens. And it drops down, getting smaller and smaller and smaller before crack, it hits some stone further down. It sort of dimly flickers and fizzes and then goes out because there's probably some water down there. But they know that immediately on the other side of this wall is indeed a bit of a drop, which complicates things a little bit. So what they do is they go to their supplies and they get out some rope they have. So we're now down to 2 supply. And they get that rope. It's long enough and pretty, like on the whole, they managed to tie it to a part of the little grotto grove thing. They tie it to a tree further up and the rope goes down, hopefully far enough down to get them in. They steel themselves, they get that little bit of fire they still have. They light up a few sort of saplings and get them burning nicely. And they sort of head down into that hole. They help each other one at a time. Do we keep this flame? It's a bit of a risk, but they can't see. So they're going to take these little burning saplings down with them. And they very carefully make their way down this slippery, wet rope. We're going to face danger as they climb down. So I'm going to say that the climb down, because they know there's more or less just a sheer drop, it's not complicated. They're just going down this rope, but it is slippery. They have to hold tight. They are also trying to hold a little bit of this branch as well. So we're going to go strength on this face danger. It's a weak hit. So what happens? Tristan, being the gentleman, goes first. And he's going down, Gahena's behind him, she's got her little saplings. All of a sudden, though, he sort of slips, which makes the whole cord sort of buckle, which causes Gahena to slip as well. They slide down that rope a little bit, and they both manage to grip on again, and they both slide to a halt. But they've really just freaked themselves out. They're not quite sure how much further down they are. So Gahena chucks one of the saplings to see. They've got a little bit to go. If they had indeed fallen, that probably would have been really bad. Fear begins to creep in. I'm going to say that a little bit of their spirit gets squished just a little bit. But they keep climbing down, and eventually they get to the bottom of this precipice. There's uneven rock. It's just sort of like, it's kind of half collapsed. Or is it uneven rock? Is this place a little built up? Yes, run down, but a little built up. I don't know. It exists because of that monolith down there, maybe. So we're going to say, what did I say 50-50? Is this place at the moment... No, I'm going to say likely. Is it built up? Yes, it is. So actually they get to the bottom, they actually find that there is a bit of like some pools of water which put out the log before, but the ground is relatively level, maybe a bit of buckling from some subsidence and stuff, but this is actually, they realize, a tunnel. As they look down to the ground, they see the wall hits a right angle. This may have been a cave once, but it's clearly being built up. And as they wave the sapling around, they see the expanse above where they climb down, maybe some sort of air vent or chimney at some point in history. Let's just say that this was a chimney, literally a chimney. And they see they're in this little box type shape, and they step out of what was once like a fireplace or something like a fireplace. They enter in, again, it's relatively big or small. Well, what's this place look like? So as they step out of this little fireplace space, they see that the roof is still fairly low, but as they sort of shine what's left of their sapling, it's slowly burning down. As they shine it out to see what they can see, they can't see. They can see the wall that they've come out from where this chimney was, but they can't see a wall that way. They can't see a wall that way or that way. This place is very wide, this chasm. But again, a fairly well-built flat roof. This place is bigger than it seems. They settle down, they get their backpacks out. They've been using these saplings so far, but they do have a more permanent arrangement. They take out from their bags a little lamp. I'm thinking like a little like pewter or clay lamp, something like that. They've got a little bit of oil they put in, they put the wick and they light it. And basically it's just a little candle, it's just a bit more reliable than a candle. They've got their little light source. It's not quite as vivid as a big bright torch, but actually it's just a nice balance of light that they can make use of, because clearly there's just none down here. And they begin to shine these little lamp lights around to see if they can gather any information as to what on earth this random underground cavern even is. Wow! Okay, so it is a strong hit because her wit is 3, but it's a 3 to a 1 against a 1 and a 1. Triple ones, that's gotta be something important. Okay, look, because we've got so many ones, I'm just going to go with what I want to do right now, what I hope this place is, because let's be honest, it's just way more exciting, something dramatic, and I think the dice, by giving me 1, 1, 1, is giving me that license. As they begin to look around, they begin to find some artwork on this wall. They can't see any of the other walls, but as they follow this wall, they indeed find some carvings, some engravings of some sort. And as they look at the lettering, they do not recognize it. At first I think it's because it's worn and run down, but slowly it begins to dawn on Gahena. She's seen something like this before. This is familiar. And then she gets uncomfortable. She begins to realize that these are older runes, very old runes. They not only predate the Ironlanders, they kind of actually predate the elves as well. These are the runes of those who came before. That's not good. And she can't read them. She shows Tristan, and Tristan's like, what is that? Is that elf? Can you read that? And she's like, no. And he's a bit embarrassed by that statement. But he looks, he's like, it looks like, I don't know what it is. As they keep going, they begin to see some pictorial representations. They can't figure it out. There's people, they're doing stuff, they're carrying things. Some people are bigger, some people are smaller, but it's confusing what on earth all this sort of means. There's animals involved, beasts involved, animal men, hybrid things. It makes no sense, but they're just seeing that clearly this is something from those who came before. And it makes both of them feel very young and very nervous. But not as nervous as their next find. As they keep tracking with this wall, they actually maybe find a corner eventually. And they think, well, we might as well just stick to the wall. And they track around the wall a bit further. And then they trip into something. Something they didn't expect. Now, what is it? As they bend down, they begin to see the shape and the form of a body, a humanoid body of some sort. But is that humanoid body fresh or old? Is it old? Yes, it's very old. These are bones. They're completely dried out. The skin has shriveled up. It actually, the bones and the shriveled skin are preserved pretty well, considering like in this part of the cavern, it's now actually quite dry compared to in the fireplace. Maybe that water sort of drains away a bit down there. But it's dry, and the clothing is still a little bit there, but it's all grey, and it makes it, they can't quite figure it out. It's old. It's very old. They can't quite tell if this is some explorer that's gotten lost down there ages ago, or maybe this is actually one of the ones who came before. They don't know. But as they look at it, they see signs of violence. Signs of something having ripped at it. It's missing bits of its body. And they don't seem to be around anywhere. And as they look at the bones, they see what looks like gnawing marks, teeth marks, but not rats. Something bigger than rats. That was a long time ago. A long time ago. Surely nothing else could be down here, could there? Okay, we'll call it there. My goodness, so we're down in the dark. We found a secret way in. There's tunnels. We're trying to find these people. And we found these ones that went before and a body that's been gnawed at by something. We'll see if we can find out what that was next time. Bye.